Hi everybody, this is your narrator Allie, and I hope you are ready to relax to our story today. Settle in, let the sounds around you grow gentle and far away, and come with me into a deep old forest where a poor couple live in a tiny hut, where a mysterious lady offers to be a child's godmother, and where sun, moon, and star themselves can fly from hidden rooms. Chapter 1. The Child in the Great Wood. Far, far away beyond fields and rivers and the last plowed furrow, there stretched a great wood. The trees there were tall and old, their roots twisted deep into the earth, their branches woven together like the ribs of a green cathedral. Few people came that way except hunters and charcoal burners, and one poor couple who had made their home in a small cottage beneath the pines. The man and his wife lived on what they could glean from the forest and a tiny patch of ground behind the house. Their clothes were worn, their tables simple, but they had one another, and they had hope. That hope blossomed at last when the wife's time came, and she gave birth to a little girl, small and bright and perfect, like a flame in the dim hut. Joy filled the cottage, yet worry slipped in beside it. They were so poor that they did not know how they might have the babe christened. There were parson's fees to be paid, and though the husband counted and recounted the few coins in their box, the sum fell short each time. "We cannot let her grow unchristened," the wife said anxiously. "It would not be right." "I will go to the neighboring farms," the husband promised. "Surely someone will stand as godparent and help with the fees. Folk are kind enough when a child is born." So he set out, walking the narrow tracks that wound through the forest toward the scattered homesteads. At each house he knocked and explained their plight. The people who opened their doors listened, smiled, and said they would gladly stand as godfather or godmother. But when he added that they would need to pay the parson as well, their smiles faded. "Times are hard," they said. "We have our own families to think of. We will stand in name, but the fees must be yours." And so the day passed, house after house, promise after promise, and not one coin offered. As the sky reddened toward evening and the shadows stretched long, the man turned his steps reluctantly homeward, his heart heavy. The forest around him was quiet, save for the rustle of leaves and the occasional call of a bird settling for the night. It was then that he met her. On the path ahead, a lady appeared as if she had stepped out from some hidden court. She was clothed in garments that shimmered like water in sunlight, and her face shone with a gentle beauty. Yet it was not her finery that struck him most, but the kindness in her eyes, deep and clear. "You look troubled, good man," she said. "Tell me what misfortune weighs so heavily on you this evening." He bowed, uneasy yet compelled to answer. "My wife and I have been blessed with a little girl," he replied, "but we are too poor to pay the parson to christen her. I have walked from house to house, and though many are willing to stand as sponsors, none will pay the fee. I do not know what to do." The lady smiled. "That is soon mended," she said. "I will gladly have the child christened. I shall stand godmother myself and pay whatever is needed. Only afterward you must give the babe into my keeping. She shall be mine to raise as my own." The man's breath caught. To have the child baptized would be a blessing, but to give her away? He thought of his wife bending over the cradle, of her hands smoothing the baby's dark hair. "I must first ask my wife," he said. "It is not a small thing to part with one's only child." "Do so," the lady replied, "but remember, I offer the child a future you cannot, and I ask only what is freely given." When he reached the cottage and told his wife all that had happened, her answer came like an arrow. "No," she said, sitting up in the bed where she still lay weak. "I would rather our child remain unchristened than lose her altogether. We will find another way." So, the next day, the man went out again, weary but determined. Once more he walked from door to door, and once more he met only polite refusals when he spoke of the parson's fee. As evening drew near and the forest darkened, the same lovely lady met him on the path. "You have not succeeded," she said gently. "My offer still stands. Let me have the child after the christening, and I will see that she wants for nothing all her days." He repeated this to his wife when he returned. "She seems so kind," he added, "and if tomorrow I still find no one to help us, perhaps we must consider her words." The mother's heart clenched, but she looked at her sleeping daughter and saw how small she was, how fragile. A fear that the child might be left outside the blessings of the church weighed upon her. "If you can find no one else by tomorrow," she said slowly, "then perhaps we must let the lady have her way. She may indeed be as good as she appears." On the third day, the man tried once more. He begged and pleaded with each neighbor, but none felt bound to give more than their names. At last, as the sun sank low and despair pressed on him like a stone, the radiant lady appeared again beneath the trees. "Well?" she asked. He bowed his head. "If you will have our child christened," he said, "then you shall take her afterward. We give her into your care." "Then it shall be done," she replied. Chapter 2. The Foster Mother's House. Early the next morning, the lady came to the poor couple's cottage. With her walked two men of grave and noble appearance, whom she said would stand as godfathers. She wrapped the babe in fine linen and carried her herself to the small church near the edge of the wood. The bells rang softly as they entered. At the font, the child received a name and the blessing of water on her brow. The parents, standing at a distance, felt both pain and peace settle upon them, the pain of parting, the peace of knowing their daughter was commended to heaven. When the service ended, the lady did as she had promised. She turned not toward the cottage in the woods, but toward her own dwelling, taking the child with her. No one quite knew where that dwelling lay. Some said it was hidden deep within the forest. Others spoke of a house that seemed to stand just beyond the horizon, always a little farther than one could walk in a day. What is certain is that the child crossed a threshold between one kind of life and another. In her new home, the little girl lacked for nothing. Her foster mother treated her with a steady kindness. She was given good food, warm clothes, and a soft bed. She learned to walk on polished floors, not earthen ones, to watch the fire in a broad hearth set within stone, not in a smoky cottage corner. Years passed. The girl grew straight and strong, with clear eyes and quick hands. Her foster mother taught her many things: how to read from books bound in leather, how to sew neat stitches, how to listen between the words of a story for the meaning beneath. Sometimes the lady would look at her with a deep, almost sorrowful tenderness, as though she saw in the girl both joy and a shadow yet to come. The child, for her part, loved her foster mother dearly. She knew nothing of the bargain made on the forest path, only that this lady had always been there, guiding and guarding her. She did not forget the poor cottage where she had spent her first days, but it grew dim in memory, like a picture seen through mist. So the years turned, and the lassie, as we may now call her, grew old enough to know right from wrong, old enough for her choices to carry weight. One day, her foster mother prepared to go on a journey. "I must leave you alone in the house for a little while," she said. "You may go wherever you please, upstairs and down, in the garden, through all the rooms, except those I shall show you now. These you must not enter, nor may you even peep through the doors." She led the lassie along a corridor and stopped before 3 doors in turn. "These rooms are forbidden," she said, touching each handle. "Remember my words." The girl promised earnestly to obey. Her foster mother kissed her on the brow and departed, the sound of her footsteps fading down the path. The house felt strangely large and quiet after she had gone. For a time, the lassie played in the sunny rooms, tended the flowers, and read in the library. But as the day lengthened, her mind kept returning to those closed doors. "What can be in them," she wondered, "that I may not see? It cannot be anything small, else she would not care. She trusts me in all the house, yet not there." Curiosity is a seed that, once planted, grows quickly. She told herself firmly that she would not disobey. Yet, as the shadows lengthened and the silence deepened, the forbidden thing loomed larger in her thoughts. At last she slipped down the corridor, her heart beating a little faster. She stood before the first door, her hand hovering near the latch. "I will only open it the tiniest crack," she thought. "Not truly go in. Surely that cannot do much harm." She raised the latch and eased the door a little way. Pop! Something bright and sharp shot past her cheek and out through the half-open window. A star, brilliant and small, flashing once as it flew up into the sky. The lassie cried out in fright and slammed the door. The room inside had gone dark and still. When her foster mother returned and saw the change, sorrow marked her face. "You have disobeyed me," she said. "You let the star escape. Do you know what you have done?" The girl wept and begged for forgiveness. "It slipped out so quickly," she sobbed. "I did not mean to do harm." Her foster mother's eyes were stern, yet full of pain. "You have given up something precious," she said. "The star was not mine alone to keep. Still, I will not send you away this time. But you must be more careful. Obedience is not a small matter." The lassie promised with all her heart that she would not fail again. Chapter 3. The Moon and the Weight of Disobedience. Time passed, and life in the house resumed its gentle pattern. Yet beneath the surface of ordinary days, a small crack had opened, like one in a glass that still holds water, but no longer shines quite the same. Once more, the foster mother needed to go on a journey. "This time," she said gravely, "you must keep away not only from the first room, but from the second as well. You know how it grieves me when you disregard my words. Do not let curiosity lead you astray." The lassie, ashamed of her earlier failure, promised again to obey. For a while after the lady's departure, she stayed far from the forbidden corridor. But as the hours went on, the same tug began inside her thoughts. What could be in the second room, she wondered? If the first hid a star, what might the second hold? Perhaps my foster mother keeps wonders there, and does not trust me to see them. Am I not old enough? Am I not nearly grown? The questions pricked at her like nettles. At last she found her feet, carrying her once more along the silent hall until she stood before the second door. "I will not open it," she told herself. "I will only lay my hand on the wood." Her fingers brushed the latch. "Perhaps just enough to look in," she reasoned. "I will not touch anything. I will only satisfy this thought that will not leave me in peace." She lifted the latch and eased the door a crack. Pop! A soft silver light leapt past her and out into the sky, floating upward like a bird rising on the wind. This time it was not small and sharp as a star, but wide and pale, round as a shield. The moon had escaped. The girl shut the door and leaned against it, her knees weak. She knew, even before her foster mother came home, that she had broken her promise twice. When the lady returned and saw that the moon too had flown, her face grew drawn and sorrowful. "Child," she said, "you do not know what you release. The star and the moon lit many paths and watched over many hearts. They were entrusted to my keeping for a time, and through your disobedience they have gone before their hour. I cannot keep you here if you will not heed the simplest of warnings." The lassie clung to her, tears streaming. "Forgive me," she cried. "Send me away if you must, but forgive me. I will never again go near the last door. Let me prove it. Let me stay and serve you faithfully." The foster mother looked at her, and in her gaze was a battle between justice and love. "Very well," she said at last. "I will give you yet another chance. But understand, disobedience always has a cost. If not today, then tomorrow. Take care, my child. Some losses cannot be mended." The girl nodded, but deep within her, curiosity had not yet been fully humbled. Chapter 4. The Third Room and the Choice of Beauty. Some seasons later, it happened once again that the foster mother needed to travel. By now, the lassie had grown tall and slender, no longer a child, but not yet a woman. Her eyes had seen enough of her own failures that she wished earnestly to do right. Before she left, the lady took her hand and looked directly into her face. "Listen to me," she said quietly. "You must not open the third room, not even a little, not even for a breath. If you do, the consequences will be heavier than before. I ask this one thing of you. Guard yourself against that small voice that whispers, 'Just a moment, just a glance.' It is that voice which leads you into sorrow." The lassie felt the seriousness of her tone and promised with all her heart. After her foster mother's departure, she busied herself about the house. She scrubbed floors, watered the flowers, read in the long afternoons, and sang softly to keep herself company. Yet, as the days passed, the thought of the third door returned, quiet but insistent. If the first room held a star, and the second the moon, she mused, surely the third holds something greater still, perhaps the sun itself, or perhaps treasures beyond my imagining. Why should I be shut out from such marvels? Have I not been a faithful daughter, save for those two small mistakes? She argued with herself, as we all do when we want something we know we should refuse. My foster mother loves me, she thought. She would not truly cast me away. She has forgiven me twice. She speaks so earnestly, but perhaps she only wishes to test me. Eventually her steps, almost of their own accord, led her down the corridor once more. She stood before the last door, hands folded, breathing hard. "I will only look," she whispered. "I will stand in the doorway and see what is within, then close it again. I cannot do much harm with only a glimpse." She touched the latch. Her fingers trembled. The latch lifted. The door opened the smallest crack. Pop! a blaze of light burst forth, so bright that she staggered back and shielded her eyes. A sphere of fire and gold shot through the window and soared upward, bathing the world in daylight. The sun had flown. The house, for a moment, seemed hollow and cold in its absence. The lassie sank to the floor and wept, knowing now that she had indeed gone too far. When her foster mother returned and saw the empty room, her grief was deep. "Now the star and the moon and the sun are gone," she said. "You have opened what was meant to remain closed and set loose what was meant to be kept. I warned you, and yet you refused to trust me. I cannot keep you with me any longer." The lassie threw herself at her feet. "Do not send me away," she cried. "I will do anything to make amends. Punish me as you will, but do not cast me adrift." The lady's face was very sad. "There must be punishment," she said. "Yet even in punishment you may choose what you will bear. Listen, either you shall be the loveliest woman in the world and lose your power of speech, or you shall keep your voice and become the ugliest of all women. Away from me you must go regardless. This is the price of what you have done." The lassie thought of a life wandering alone, shunned for her ugliness, but able to plead her case, to tell her story. She thought of another life, wondrously beautiful, yet mute as stone, unable to explain, to protest, to seek mercy with words. In the end, youth and an untested heart chose what seemed easiest. "I would rather be fair," she said quietly. "If I must go, let me at least be pleasant to look upon." "So be it," the foster mother replied. In that moment, the lassie's appearance changed. Her hair shone like polished chestnut, her skin was clear and luminous, her eyes bright as clear water. Any who looked upon her would see a beauty rare in any kingdom. But when she opened her mouth to speak, no sound came. Her voice had vanished. Her foster mother led her to the edge of the forest. "Go now," she said. "You must walk the path that lies before you. Remember, I am not far, though you may not see me. And though your tongue is silent, you may yet learn much through what you endure." Then she turned and went back into her strange house, and the lassie was left alone. Chapter 5. The Spring Beneath the Tree. The lassie walked and walked deeper into the forest. No matter which path she chose, the trees seemed endlessly ahead, their trunks marching in quiet rows. The sunlight filtered down in shafts, and birds called in the high branches, but there was no sign of village or house. As evening neared, she grew weary. At last she came upon a tall tree that grew beside a clear spring. The water bubbled up from the earth and flowed away in a narrow stream, its surface smooth as glass. Climbing into the tree, she found a comfortable fork among the branches and settled herself there for the night. From her perch, she could see the reflection of the sky in the spring, and her own face looking back at her. Not far from that spring, though she did not yet know it, stood a castle of gray stone, its towers outlined against the sinking sun. In the castle lived a young prince and his mother, the queen. Each morning, before anyone else stirred, a maid from the castle came down to the spring to draw water for the prince's tea. She carried a clay pitcher and walked with sleepy steps, thinking of nothing more magical than the warmth of the kitchen fire. That morning, as she leaned over the spring, she saw a face in the water, fair, radiant, crowned with hair that shone in the first light. She thought it was her own reflection, transformed. "I am beautiful," she gasped, "far too beautiful to be sent trudging down here for water." In foolish delight, she flung the pitcher aside, letting it shatter on the stones, and ran back to the castle. When the cook demanded to know why she had returned empty-handed, the maid tossed her head. "Send someone else," she said. "I am too fair for such work." The cook scolded her soundly, but the second morning the same thing happened with another maid, who also saw the reflection in the spring and believed it her own. She too refused to carry water for the prince. At last the prince himself grew curious. "What is this nonsense about?" he said. "Are my maids bewitched or merely lazy? I will go to the spring and see." He walked down to the tree at the water's edge. As he leaned over the spring, he saw the same beautiful face his servants had seen, the face of the lassie, framed by branches above. Unlike the maids, he looked not only at the water, but up into the tree. There he saw her, seated among the leaves, silent and still. She looked down at him, unable to speak, though her eyes were full of both fear and hope. "Come down," he called gently. "You have no need to hide." She hesitated, then climbed carefully down from the branches. When she stood before him, he saw that the reflection had not lied. She was indeed as lovely as the water had shown. "Who are you?" he asked. "How came you here?" She opened her mouth, but no words came. She laid a hand upon her throat, then let it fall, shaking her head. "Ah," he said softly, "you cannot speak." There was something in her eyes, however, that spoke eloquently, something pure and steadfast. He felt in that moment that his life had shifted. "Come with me to the castle," he said. "Whatever you cannot tell me with your voice, you may yet show in other ways." He led her home, and the servants whispered as she passed, amazed by her beauty and her silence. Chapter 6. The Silent Queen and Three Births. The prince's mother, the old queen, was not pleased when she saw the stranger. "She cannot speak," she said sharply. "For all we know, she may be a witch who has cast a spell upon herself to win your pity. You cannot take such a one for your wife." But the prince had made up his mind. "I will not be swayed," he replied. "I have seen many ladies who speak fair words and mean little. This maiden's eyes tell me more than 100 tongues. I shall marry her, if she will have me." The lassie, though she could not speak her consent, showed it clearly in the way she placed her hand in his, the way her gaze softened when he turned to her. And so they were wedded. The castle bells rang, and the people cheered to see a bride so radiant, though many murmured uneasily at her silence and at the old queen's stern face. In time, the new queen, still dumb, was with child. The prince, anxious because of his mother's suspicions, set a strong watch about her chamber when her time drew near. Guards stood at the door, servants kept vigil, and the old queen herself remained near, determined to see no harm befell the infant. Yet when the labor pains began, a deep sleep fell upon them all, one by one. The guards slumped in their chairs, the old queen's head drooped, even the prince, who had sworn to stay awake, sank into slumber as heavy as stones. Through the quiet corridor, unseen, came the foster mother. She entered the room where the lassie lay in travail. There she helped with the birth of a fine child. Then, with sorrow and sternness mingled, she pricked the baby's little finger and let a drop of blood fall upon the young queen's lips. "You shall taste grief," she said, "as I grieved when you set the star free before its time." Taking the infant in her arms, she vanished as silently as she had come. When the watchers woke, the cradle stood empty. The young queen's mouth was stained with red. Seeing this, the old queen cried out in horror. "She has devoured her own child," she declared. "What kind of creature have you brought into our house?" The prince, though shocked, could not believe such a thing of his gentle wife. He pleaded her innocence, but the sight seemed damning. The old queen insisted she be burned for her crime. The prince begged and argued until at last, out of love for him, his mother relented slightly. "She shall not die," she said, "but only because you plead for her. Yet mark my words, evil clings to her. We must watch carefully." Time passed, and once more the silent queen was with child. This time an even stronger watch was set. More guards, more servants, more lamps burning through the night. But when the pains came, the same heavy sleep descended upon them all. Into the silence walked the foster mother again. She delivered the second child, pricked its finger, and touched the blood to the queen's lips. "Now you shall know sorrow," she whispered, "as I knew sorrow when you released the moon." The babe vanished with her into the unseen world. Again, when the household woke, the cradle was empty, and the queen's mouth bore that small red stain. The old queen was fiercer than before. "There can be no doubt now," she cried. "Twice she has done this. Twice your love has spared her. If the law will not act, the heavens themselves will turn against us." The prince clung to his faith in his wife, though he had no means to prove her innocence. He pleaded once more, and once more his mother, for love of him, delayed the judgment. A third time the queen conceived. This time the watch was threefold stronger. Guards stood arm to arm, torches blazed, and none were allowed to leave their posts. Yet when the hour came, the old deep sleep settled over them yet again. For the third time, the foster mother came to the bedside. She received the child, pricked its finger, and smeared the blood on the young queen's lips. "As I grieved when you let the son escape," she said, "so shall grief sit in your heart until you have learned what your actions mean." Then she vanished with the child. When all awoke and saw the empty cradle and the stained mouth for a third time, there was no more mercy in the old queen. "Now she must die," she declared. "Not even your love, my son, can excuse this evil. 3 children lost, and all point to her." This time the prince had no argument strong enough to prevail. His heart was torn, yet the law and the clamor of the court rose against him. A stake was raised in the square before the castle. Wood was piled around it. The silent queen, pale but strangely calm, was led out, her hands bound. She could not speak to defend herself. She could not tell them of the mysterious sleep, of the foster mother's visits. She placed herself in the hands of the one who sees beyond appearances and knows the hidden truth. Just as the torch was about to be set to the wood, a cry went up from the edge of the crowd. Chapter 7. The Return of Sun, Moon, and Star. Through the parting throng walked the foster mother, her face shining with a light the people could not understand. By her side she led 2 small children, and in her arms she carried a third. The flames at the base of the stake had not yet caught. The soldiers paused, hands frozen. She walked straight to the condemned queen and stood before her. "Here are your children," she said. "I bring them back to you. You have been accused of devouring them, but see, they are alive and well." A murmur of astonishment rose from the crowd. The prince rushed forward, eyes wide, and saw that indeed these were his children, bearing his features and their mother's. The old queen staggered back, her face suddenly pale. "Who are you?" she whispered. The foster mother looked at them all, and her voice carried clearly over the square. "I am she who watched over this lassie from her birth," she said. "When she was born to poor parents in the forest, I took her and raised her as my own. I entrusted to her the keeping of star, moon, and sun. She broke that trust 3 times through disobedience. Her choice to value beauty over truth and to cling to her own will rather than mine brought sorrow not only to me, but to many." She turned to the queen, and her eyes were at once stern and full of love. "As I grieved when you set free the star, so you have grieved for your first child. As I grieved when you loosed the moon, so you have grieved for your second. As I grieved when you let out the sun, so your heart has burned for the third. You have carried the weight of your actions, though you did not fully understand it. Now your punishment is fulfilled." She laid a gentle hand upon the queen's lips. "From this moment, your speech is restored," she said. "Use it wisely." The bonds of silence fell away. The queen felt her voice stirring like a bird long trapped. Tears streamed down her face. "Forgive me," she whispered, to her foster mother, to her husband, to her mother-in-law, to heaven itself. "I was proud and curious. I would not trust the warnings given me. I have caused pain to more hearts than my own." The foster mother smiled. "Forgiveness has already reached you," she said softly. "You may begin anew." Then, before the eyes of all, she seemed to shine with a radiance not of this world. Some called her the Lady of Heaven, some the Mother of Mercy, some simply the one whom God had sent. Names matter less than the kindness she carried. She placed the oldest child's hand in the queen's, the second in the prince's, and kept the third for a moment longer in her arms, as though savoring one last embrace. "Guard them well," she said, "and remember what it cost to have them returned." With that she vanished from their sight, leaving only the soft echo of her presence in the air. The people fell to their knees, moved by a reverence they could not explain. The prince cut the ropes that bound his wife. He drew her close with one arm and their children with the other. The old queen, humbled and relieved, knelt before her daughter-in-law. "I wronged you," she said. "I judged by what my eyes saw, and not by what I could not know. Can you forgive an old woman's fear?" The younger queen lifted her up. "We have all learned hard lessons," she replied. "Let the past be past. We will walk forward together." From that day peace settled over the castle like a soft cloak. The prince and his wife raised their children in love, teaching them that truth and obedience protect more than any charm, and that curiosity is best guided by wisdom. The old queen grew gentle in her later years, her sharpness worn away by what she had witnessed. As for the lassie's foster mother, she was rarely spoken of by name, yet candles burned before her image in quiet corners, and mothers whispered her a prayer when they feared for their children. Closing reflection, trusting the closed door. Our story of the lassie and her godmother weaves together many threads: poverty and generosity, disobedience and consequence, judgment and mercy. At its heart lies a simple struggle that all of us know: the pull between curiosity and trust. The foster mother did not forbid her daughter the 3 rooms because she wished to keep wonders to herself. She knew that some things, if opened too soon or without proper preparation, can burn or blind those who gaze upon them. Star, moon, and sun each have their hour. The lassie's choice to peek, then to peek again, and finally to throw the last door wide open did not make her evil, it made her deeply human. Yet, her actions still had weight. They set forces in motion that touched not only her own life, but the lives of those around her, her godmother, her husband, her children, even her suspicious mother-in-law. The story does not leave her in punishment forever. Through the foster mother's stern yet tender love, her misdeeds are mirrored back to her, 3 sorrows answering 3 acts of disobedience. When she has felt the pain of what she has done, not as revenge, but as understanding, her voice is restored, and she is free to live differently. Perhaps, as you leave this tale, you might think of the doors in your own life, opportunities, secrets, powers that stand waiting. Some may indeed be yours to open. Others may need to remain closed for a time or forever. Wisdom is the art of knowing the difference, and perhaps you might also remember that when we fail, and we all do, the story need not end at the moment of our mistake. There may yet be a path through sorrow to healing if we are willing to learn, to accept, and to change. Thank you for listening and wandering these forest paths with me. This is your narrator, Ali, wishing you clear eyes to see, patient hearts to trust, and, when the time is right, the courage to open the right doors and to leave the others gently closed. For more stories that can help you relax, don't forget to like and subscribe.